So before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and express our gratitude to the land we are on today for sustaining us and providing us with the necessities of this land has sustained the generations that have preceded us and continues to nurture us to this date. I also recognize the blessing and opportunity to work with you all on this important land. The land that Sheridan Edge is occupying is the traditional territory of several indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. But as we meet on this virtual platform, I would urge each one of you to acknowledge and reflect on whose land it is that you are occupying. Let's try to incorporate the principles of love, respect, and humility in our lives and reflect upon systemic oppression and colonial violence that has been and continues to cause so much hurt and suffering. Let us acknowledge our collective responsibility to honor those who have gone before us, those who are here, and those who are yet to come. And with that, I'll go to Marisol.
Hello, everybody. It's so great to hear you, to see you here. You're going to notice that I am talking from St. John's because we're like here together in the space, in our beautiful space. For those of you who, this is a public session, so we have a few of the people that are in our cohort for Social Impact Catalyst, and we also have people from our community and extended community and stakeholders, so welcome everybody. We're going to give a little into what we are, what EDGE is. So Sheridan College's Social Entrepreneurship Hub is EDGE, and what we are is a community of people from, like, we're very diverse from a lot of many backgrounds, very reflective of what Mississauga is in terms of the region and how multicultural it can be. And we all believe here and we share the value that we can all make lasting change in our society and in our communities through what we do. So at EDGE, what we want to do is to support that community, bring us together to co-create knowledge and to engage with each other to support our initiatives. The next one, Senora, please. So this is a list of things that what we do here at EDGE, but I want to invite you to come meet us too and to look into our website and look at the materials that we're going to be sharing later to learn a bit more about us. Our values are deeply grounded in justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and decolonization. So on that note, everything we do here, we do it grounded in the notion that it's very important for us to take care of each other, to orient ourselves into well-being, so we can be consistent in bringing well-being to each one's communities. Included in that is financial sustainability. So today's topic with Lisa, our facilitator today, is about specifically that. How can we focus on financial sustainability, always, grounded in these shared values that we all hold. Next one, please. That the one is to right. Yeah.
We are also very excited to let you all know that as of today, our co-working and community memberships are live. If you've been looking for an affordable and centrally located co-working space in the heart of Mississauga, we have co-working memberships starting as low as $100 a month. This includes hot desk access to the kitchen with all-day coffee and tea, meeting rooms, and discounts, business mailing address, and a lot more. We also have daily passes available, and all of our month-to-month, all of the plans are month-to-month and are flexible for you and your teams. I am going to be sharing the link in the chat to sign up for our memberships. We also have, for Sheridan students, we also have a free membership to EDGE to access the learning modules in entrepreneurship and change making. Also, it gives you access to staff advisors, a peer community, and to sign up for the student membership, I'm also leaving the link in the chat box below. And with that, we move on to the upcoming public sessions that we have lined up for this SIC program. We have the Indigenous Principles for Startup on next Tuesday, the Alternative Business Models on February 28th. This is an in-person session. And then we have the Digital Marketing for Startups on the March 7th. which is an online session. I would like to,
or maybe before we can make a shout out to the people who got
yeah,
shortlisted, like the finalists on the Saga pitch. So we're very happy to announce that one of the initiatives that we have here at Edge in our Social Impact Catalyst program got to be a finalist in the upcoming Saga pitch competition this Thursday. So who were they?
Ace Inc., Lauren D'Souza.
So congratulations. We went through, we saw all the pitches, they were all amazing, and we're very happy to announce and we're very proud that one of the finalists is one of our people. So yeah, we were just going to make a big celebration. We're all happy and proud to have you all. And yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to welcome you all to the Finance and Funding for Startup session. And I would like to start by reinforcing what Marisol said before, that at Edge, we believe in exploring different perspectives and trying to provide resources that are equitable and inclusive. We realize that financial sustainability is essential to any venture, whether it is for or not for profit. And talking about money and what it means can be difficult. This presentation is going to provide one perspective on how we can approach financing for your startup, but we also acknowledge that this can look different depending on your experience. At today's session, we have the wonderful Lisa Kember with us, who will be sharing her insights, perspective, and experiences with us on this topic. Lisa Kember helps ambitious impact entrepreneurs grow a stable and financially sustainable venture. As a passionate champion for the entrepreneurial community, Lisa is a business growth expert with a coaching and advisory practice, runs training courses to help entrepreneurs optimize their business, and facilitates peer advisory programs for established founders and CEOs. Lisa has been an entrepreneur throughout her career, running marketing, public relations, personal development, property management, and real estate investment companies. She built a company that doubled in size each year for several years running. She grew another company to over 120,000 customers in 5 years through strategic partnerships that generated close to $36 million in annual business. And since she began coaching in 2017, Lisa has helped 18 companies successfully grow up to 400% annually, resulting in the acquisition of 2 of these ventures. Apart from her practical experience, Lisa holds a BA in Honors English from the University of Waterloo, a marketing practicum from Ryerson University, and a resource development diploma from Sheridan College. So we are very grateful to have Lisa join us today, and we'll be giving the floor to her. Welcome, Lisa.
Well, thanks so much. I hear that intro and I go, who is that person? I don't know who that is, because I'm just down in the trenches like all of you trying to build my business. So today we're going to talk about the money side of business, and this is the stuff that gets me pretty excited. So I'll do my best to share both my enthusiasm and what knowledge I have to date about how to raise money, how to make money, how to grow from here. One of the things that I did, I have a fairly large network of people who are entrepreneurs and business owners. So I put a note out on social media. I sent some queries out to friends in business and asked them, what do you wish you knew about money before you started your business? And these are some of the answers that came back. They said that they wished they knew that steady growth can be better than fast growth, that they wish they had started earlier to really understand the money side of their business, that they wish they had limited debt along the path to growth, that they would pay themselves first, that they would know the full costs and price appropriately their products and services, and that sales is the best path to cash in your company. And then finally, and I thought this was kind of funny, you just married the CRA. Congratulations, you're in business. So, hope there's no CRA people on the call. The other thing that somebody sent me, and I'm going to read it to you because it was so lengthy, it was hard to communicate on a single slide, but it just said, they need to learn, entrepreneurs need to learn how to build a pro forma financial model for their business. What the heck is that? Does anybody know? um, Not a pie in the sky business plan that shows how they will be successful, but a proper reality-based projection of all the costs associated with providing their service or product to the market. Then work backwards and determine how much revenue they need to cover those costs and make a profit they can live with. Too many entrepreneurs start business with no idea of what their costs really are. So I thought that was kind of interesting, especially since all of us are just kind of, when we start, that we don't know. We don't know what our costs are going to be. I mean, I'm on my now, what is this? My fifth company, my fifth, I always say my fifth real business, because, you know, I've had a few fails along the way. And my very first business, I always joke, was my mom had a garden in the backyard, and we lived in the country, and I had a strawberry stand at the road in the summers where I would sell my mom's strawberries out of her garden. So that was my first business, but my first real business was when I was in my 20s. So so the point is that I think all of us, when we start businesses, we have lots to learn. And I'm now, 5 businesses in, and I still have lots to learn. In fact, I started having this little panic attack last night, like, I'm presenting this workshop, but do I really know everything there is to know about money? And the truth is, I really don't, because we're all just still learning. So maybe I'm going to say something today, and you're going to ask me a question, and I'm going to be like, I don't know, but we'll find out together. So I want you to just think about the word money, and money as it relates to your business, and type in the chat the first word that comes to mind as it relates to money in your business. What's the word that comes to mind? What have we got? Stability, publishing costs, opportunity, charity, stuck. Yes, I've been stuck lots of times. Capital. What else we got? Revenue, cost, all good stuff. Yeah, I find it. Income, yes, 100%. Money flow. Goal, yeah. You know, it's funny, I just started working with a new client outside of Edge, and in my business, and when we got talking about the money side of the business, she says to me, I just don't know much about money. And I failed an accounting course, so way back in high school. So I just feel like I don't know if I should be in business because I'm not very good at accounting. And the two things in my mind are quite different. A lot of entrepreneurs 20 years in are still running back of the napkin, assessments about whether they can afford to do things or whether they're charging enough for clients. So, so I think that not everybody is ever going to go down the path of managing their finances at the point and level that an accountant does. But it's interesting, the words that come up for us as it relates to money in business and in life. The fact is that we get to choose what we believe about money. And, look at all the responses that came up in the chat there when I asked you. And then think about all the responses that I had to my question about what you wish you knew about money, to all these, people that are a little farther down the path than you at this point in business. But money has so much crazy stuff associated with it. And most of that stuff is in our head. Sometimes we think abundance, sometimes we think lack, sometimes we think it's sales, sometimes we think it's, a government grant. Sometimes we think we have enough, other times we feel like we don't have enough. In fact, lately it feels like a lot of times we don't have enough with the cost of living going up. I had an entrepreneur tell me yesterday that they can't grow because they got turned down for one grant. I know a lot of people have had to apply for multiple grants to get the money they needed to grow. I had a friend on the weekend tell me that debt is bad no matter what. And yet, you know, thank God I was able to get a mortgage, a debt to buy my house, right? Way back. So, you know, debt has its purpose sometimes, right? There's things we believe about money. Some are real, some are not real, but it's all created up here, all created in our heads. I had a woman who's in business now 4 years that told me that every time she thinks about money, her heart starts racing because she doesn't really understand what her accountant is telling her. And I can tell you, I've been there. I remember in my very first real business, I went to see my accountant one time and I walked out and I was like, I do not know what he's saying. He keeps telling me I've made money, but I don't see it. It's not in my bank account. Where is it? So I think we have a varying levels of comfort as it relates to money. So, in fact, I even had a woman the other day tell me that her accountant told her that profit is bad, meaning you want to minimize taxes, so therefore, you know, minimize profit. Well, to me, let's go and max out profit and figure out, you know, pay the government their piece and figure out how to legitimately pay just what we need from a tax point of view. So, um, that is all created upstairs in our brains, how we see things, how we choose to see money in our business, how we choose to see our success in business. Uh, all of it is really just the way we think. Business is really simple at the end of the day. You just have to go and sell something to somebody who wants to buy it. And fact is that many times over the years, in all the different ventures that I've been terrified lots of times as it relates to the goals I had, the income I was trying to achieve. There's just so many times when it felt like things were standing in my way of trying to build that company. And um, I told you the accountant story coming out, feeling like I didn't really know what he was talking about. I was turned down hundreds of times for financing way back when I was first starting my very first company, my first real company in my 20s. You know, a 20-year-old going into a bank and asking for financing, a woman at that time, 30 years ago, really meant they weren't that interested in helping you out. So I walked out many times crying out of the bank, I can tell you that. You know, maybe it's not something I should admit. Mm. But one day I realized that I get to control my thinking and they can say whatever they want, but I control my ability to move forward. And so my thinking really matters. We choose how we can see things, how we see things. So if you've ever felt like there isn't enough money for you to grow your business today, just for today, let's take on a new belief that every one of us in this virtual room can have all that we need, all the money we need to build our business. There is some caveats to that. We just have to have customers who need what we offer, a financially viable plan, an understanding of what money options are out there in terms of funding and financing. And then finally, we need to hold the how loosely. So I'm going to talk about each one of these things. But we get to choose the story we tell ourselves about what is possible for us. So let's just, for today, suspend our disbelief and choose to believe that we can have whatever we need when it comes to building our business. So the question becomes, if we can have whatever we need, then how much money do you need for your business? So if you were to choose a number that would get you going in business or get you at the next level in business, what would that number be? You want to type it in the chat? Just take a wild guess at it. I'll put mine in. I think I could use right now. There we go. 60K to open. No clue, a few no clues. That's okay. You're going to have more of an idea after this. 5,000 would be good to start. 150,000. Perfect. So we all have a number in mind. Or if we don't, then we know we need to get a number in mind. 10K maybe. Okay, awesome. So we're going to talk through um, how you get to know how much money you need. I think most of us as entrepreneurs have a number in mind, but sometimes we're afraid to state it out, right? Sometimes there's this discomfort with like, I think that's enough, but I don't really know if it's enough. Or maybe like it's the number's too big. Like who put the 150,000? That's awesome. I love somebody that just reaches for big, right? We're suspending any disbelief that we have today, and we're going straight for what we want because we can. Um, so I want to answer the question of how much money that you need, but first I want to step back to the first point. If you remember me saying, you can have all the money you need, but it starts first of all with customers who need what you offer. So most businesses are started to solve a problem of some sort. Something like somebody has not enough of something or too much of something, or they have been frustrated by a problem, or they need a different way of doing things. There's a bit of a challenge or something that's come up for them. And we start businesses very often to solve those problems. The challenge is to find those problems that they will pay for, the critical problems. And the closer you get to those pressing problems, the pressing needs that people have, the more unique impact your solution, your product or service has on solving those needs, the easier it is to get money, to get to the money faster, to raise money when you need it. And so the more pressing the problem, the easier the money flow. So at Edge, I'm involved in the RISE program, and we've recently been working with people solving some really big problems. Jelly Social, for instance, has been addressing challenges around connecting to people and building a network. There's a woman named Ilana in the program. She's developing a platform which will provide disabled people with access to the best quality of care and the ability to communicate their needs, no matter what their disability is. One of the Edge members, Spotwork, has been solving a really big problem around gig work, around people seeking interim employment leading to full-time, or employers who want to hire people for seasonal labor and have to depend on what has traditionally in the industry been kind of an unstable or shady type of business model. So they've been able to, because they're solving a big problem, they've been able to grow pretty rapidly. They've been able to sell, they've been able to raise the money they need to grow rapidly. But it's all about what is the problem you're solving and how critical is that problem. So if you can get to that, then that makes it easier to make the money flow faster. So the second item on the list was a financially viable plan. So this slide is like a whole set of steps, and I've purposely written them out so that you can go back to these later, because I know the slides are going to be shared. But what you would do is start with your budget. So most of you have probably sat down and figured out, if I'm going to do business X, I'm going to need to spend to build, let's say, a technology platform, or I'm going to need to, spend some money on marketing, or I'm going to need to build some, like an online funnel, a marketing funnel, or whatever. You've listed out what your different expenses are related to that business. So you've set a bit of a budget. Then what you need to do is do an income and expense projection, which I'm going to show you how that works. And what that will tell you is where money is going to come from and when. So you'll start with sales, or you can start with expenses actually, but it doesn't matter. You can start with sales. What are you selling? What are the different solutions you're selling? What do you think you can sell it at, and how many? each month. And then set your profit target. So how much would you like to be retaining as profit or retained earnings? And let's say you want to retain 20%. And you need to have some profit in the business, just so that you know. I'm sure all of you know this, but didn't occur to me early on in my business. Obviously, I clearly didn't know what I was doing, but it didn't occur to me that I needed to plan for that profit. So you want to plan as much as possible ahead in order to allow yourself to have the money that you need to pay yourself and to retain enough money in the business to allow you to grow and grow from sales. Then you'll look at where will that money go. So that's your expenses, the budget you've put together. And then you're going to roll those out across the next several months or years to say, when will those expenses hit? And then what you can look at is, how much cash are you starting out with, and where will there be cash injections, or where would you need cash injections? And when you complete the income and expense projection, it tells you where your cash gap lies and how much. So what does it look like? Let's look at an example. This is what it would look like, just one very rough example. So in this particular case, this is the things that these people are selling. They've laid out across the month by month projection, they've laid out where, oops, sorry, back up, touching the screen and I shouldn't. They've laid out where that money will hit based on sales conversation. Okay, so they're out, they're talking to people. They've said, they started in January tracking, and they have been laying out precisely where they think that money will hit. As they go forward, at the end of each month that's completed, they fill in the actual numbers. So, we're sitting mid-February now, so if I was working with them, and this wasn't just an example, I would have them go back and fill in for January what the real number was. Did they get any sales or not? How much, and when did it hit, and on what type of product or service? Then we'd look at their expenses. These folks don't have a whole lot of upfront expenses, but they do want to start paying themselves right away. So that's a bit of a concern, right? You got to have enough income in the business in order to pay yourself. And then you look at down below here, this is your profit projection. Sorry, I can't see it. Give me 1 second. Yes. Sorry, I have a 10-year-old asking to go to the schoolyard. So this is your target profit. So you would put a percentage of earnings here. So it's a percentage of total income. Then that shows your net income. Income minus expenses minus profit target equals your net income. What this cash position is where your cash needs will hit. So if you started with $500 in your bank account, feeling rich at $500, each month you would either have a positive or a negative running across here. So you can see that as they grow, unless they drive more sales, they're going to hit a cash problem right here. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat, or ask your question at this point. Got a few thumbs up. Okay. Okay, Aaron, not clear. Okay, so you're guessing a little bit as it relates to revenue. Okay, this is usually where the question comes. So, or you can feel free to type your question in the chat. The revenue side is a little bit of a guess and a little bit based on sales conversations that you're having. So in this particular case, they're a few months into their business. So they've been having sales conversations. So these numbers from January through to about, can't see this, I've got things in front of my screen here. January through to about June or July is actual opportunities that they think they're going to get, or that they have pre-sold and it's going to hit, like in this case, talent scouting, they think they're going to get. Then this projected revenue is basically what they think they can do based on what they're seeing so far on their current sales activity. Okay. The expenses is just from budget, and all it is you're dropping those expenses in when they're going to hit. So in this case, they've got, you know, marketing related expenses that they know they're going to have right here. They have sales related expenses that are going to, they figure they, because one of the things they've been talking about is to do sales lunch, lunch meetings with people. So basically spending $100 a month buying lunch for people, strategic connections. So income minus expenses minus the profit target. Is that where the question comes from? The profit is based on what percentage profit do you want to make? And usually you would set a target, 20% in net profit, 20%, 30%, depends on the business. There's some rules of thumb about what makes sense in order to keep pricing within the level for your industry. So Erin, what is the difference between target profit and net income? Not much, except for a difference in thinking. So I'm trying to help you think a little bit differently. So yes, target profit is part of net income, but what I'm asking you to think about is what you're going to retain in the business. So plan for profit, or what is called retained earnings. Does that make sense? Is the management income creating a problem with the cash position? Yes. However, what this is forcing them to do, and I asked them to put it in there, what it's forcing them to do is to start to think about how they pay themselves from day one. One of the things I've seen over the last few years working with Edge and being in the startup community is that often people get too far into their business. They're 2 or 3 years in and they haven't figured out how to pay themselves. They're paying their marketing person, they're paying their suppliers, they're paying for the cost of the product. They haven't figured out how much activity they need to do in terms of sales in order to be able to pay themselves. So to me, you want to build that in right away as a income stream for yourself. And you can see that we've got it ramping up. Now, in this case, there's 2 partners. So this is actually to pay 2 people. Are you with me so far? Should most companies have an emergency? What was that? Sorry, it skipped up. Should most companies have an emergency fund? Oops. Oops. Oops, I've lost it. Can you help me out here, Sanjana? There was a question about an emergency fund. Should most companies have an emergency fund? Here it is. Okay, to keep them afloat for a period of time. So that is essentially what retained earnings are. Okay, you would retain some money in the business in order to sustain yourself over time. So as an example, during COVID and before the government started helping out companies with some subsidies, that first couple of weeks after everybody shut down and people were staying home and employers were basically told to shut down their businesses, we have 41 clients in our business. I had calls all day long for people who were freaking out a little bit. They had overhead, they have, you know, buildings they're paying for, they had 100 employees or so, and they were struggling to figure out how they were going to manage things. Was this going to last a week? Was it going to last a month? Was it going to last a year? Nobody really knew. And so the ones that did well and were could think a little bit more clearly were the ones that had operated this way, retaining some profit in their business and planning ahead for profit or retained earnings, keeping that profit in the company, not always taking it out to their own pocket. That also in turn allows companies to down the road, after they have enough retained, to be able to make donations to social causes or start to build in more of an impact model in their business in order to shift how they operate within the communities that they operate. Okay, what are the other questions here? Should most companies have, okay, emergency fund? Why does cash have to be separate from net income? So net income is an on paper kind of a thing. So depending on the type of business you're in, so there's no one answer for everybody, but you bring money in the door, so you make a sale. That money doesn't always hit your business right away, but you track it in that month, okay? So you send an invoice, it's tracked in your business. You pay expenses because those expenses have to be paid every month, right? Your SaaS software, your lawyer wants his payment, your whatever. You have things you have to pay out through the month. Those are your expenses and where they're hitting month by month. You retain some profits, throw that in a separate account, and then you've got net income on paper. Your cash position tells you how you're going to be able to pay next month's expenses while you may wait for money to come in from stuff you build this month. Does that make sense, Aaron? Give me a thumbs up or something. Yes, okay, good. Any other questions before I move on? The intent here is to show you where your cash gaps lie, okay? So if you start doing this for your business, this one's maybe a more optimistic example because some of this is just like they're selling without really getting too much layout of expenses before they have the sale. But what often will show up, for instance, if you're running, let's say you're building a tech platform and you have to lay out some work for developers, you've got to make some payments up front. So maybe you've been able to save enough money or you've raised enough money to get that. You put that cash in at wherever it hits. So you show where you start. This is before January. So at the beginning of the year, these folks started with $500 in cash. As they sold, they were able to see where they got into a positive cash position. But let's say they had to pay out developers somewhere in here, they could burn through their cash. Now they have a cash gap. So by planning ahead month by month, you can see where that cash gap is and how much it will be. So here it's hitting toward the end of the year and it's, $9,000. So this is the bank balance essentially. Okay, I hope everybody's with me. It's hard to tell on a webinar. Okay, so I want to move forward a little bit and say, there is no one answer for everybody's business as it relates to money, which is why we kind of have to look at your business uniquely and how you're going to access money, whether that's sales or whether it is funding or financing. It really depends on multiple things: the type of business you're in, what stage you're at, whether you have any money that you're putting into the business or not, whether you have a personal background in the business you're trying to build and you can build off those connections and relationships that you have. Your personal situation, your personal financial situation. Like if you went to RBC, who is a backer of the SIC program, if you went to RBC and you wanted to, let's say, get a line of credit or a loan, they're going to look at your personal financial situation. because your business, if it's new, has no particular credit history of its own. How you access money also is very much personal, because your tolerance for risk can also impact on the way you would go about raising money. So I want to go to this related background and personal situation. I have a friend who is in the sustainable forestry industry. So he grew up in the business. He's new in business. He's only just started this company within the last year, but he has been in and out of different areas of the business, the industry, I mean, for his whole career. He started as a kid working in his father's mill, and now he's working sustainable forestry initiatives in his own business. So when he needed to raise money for equipment, which is in the millions of dollars, he had the background. When he would go and talk to somebody and explain what he was doing, and they asked about his background, he had the advantage of being able to say, well, I've been in this business my whole life in these areas. Now I'm getting into this. But he had just been through a divorce, so he had no money. Like, all of his money's tied up. They're in court trying to figure out the divorce, or the financial part of the divorce. So, not able to raise his own money, like use his own money in order to finance the business. So he had to go get what he calls a money guy, right? So we're going to talk about money guys, but for him, that's how it worked. On the other hand, he has a competitor who is a young guy in business, doesn't have as much related background, but comes from a situation where he has access to personal money. So completely opposite situation. Both of them have ended up getting into business in the last year or two, and they've gone about it differently because of their personal situation. So that's just one little example in one industry. The timing of when you need money can also impact on your unique situation. I was trying to help a client go and get some funding from the Canada Ontario Jobs Grant. And I hadn't realized, but it was running out at the end of March. So unfortunately, our timing was just a little bit too late. So now we're waiting to see what next funding is going to come up. But the timing can matter because of when funds are available, when financing programs are available, what the government comes out with, or what you need in your business. Any questions on that? But basically, money is available to pretty much anybody. Remember, we're suspending disbelief, and we're believing that any one of us can have what we need, because it is out there. You may get a lot of no's. I can tell you, my first real business, I got a lot of no's, a lot of tears spent, I'll tell you. But if you can push through the no's or skirt around all those no's, you will get to the source of money that you need. Okay. So when I think about, and I don't know, how am I doing for time? Okay. We need to think through in our own business. We need to be able to, before we go and talk to funders, financiers, or money people of any kind, even sales opportunities, we kind of need to know, what is the potential for growth in this business? How much money do I need? How much am I putting in versus how much I have to raise? And how am I going to make sure that if I go into a partnership with somebody who is providing funding, how can I make sure that the partnership is strong? And so it starts with understanding the different options. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I'm sure most of you, if you've been looking for funding, have been already researching what's out there. So self-funding, I'm going to tell you, probably 80% of business owners or more basically fund their own way. And they fund either through cash that they have, which is probably the minority. Most people don't have cash when they're starting a business, even though all the experts tell you to have 6 months of cash set aside. I don't know anybody that's done that, actually. Um, so investing your own cash is one way to self-fund. The other way is to fund through income. So that can be income in the business, and we can talk about ways that will look. Um, or your own sweat equity, or just choosing not to pay yourself an income and using the sales and reinvesting in the business. Not everybody has that luxury. The great thing about self-funding is that you maintain full control. The negative about it is that there's often not enough money for the pace of growth at which you want to grow. Funding and financing, this is, this next one, sorry, I can't even see my own screen. This next one is the love money. That's you going to family, friends, getting a spouse, a mom, a dad, somebody to loan you some money or give you some money. If you have wealthy people around you, that's great. Not too many of us have that option. But even if they aren't particularly wealthy people around you, people still can contribute. Like you have network, you can put together your own network of people and have them all contribute $1,000 each in order to raise the 10,000 that you want and promise them a return at a certain point when you get to in your business. So that's an option. There's some good things about that. There's some not so good things about that. Sometimes family can get just a little too into your business if they're involved in some way. Loans, on the plus side, there's, good payment terms on that, good way to sort of manage money through your business. On the negative side, that really requires you to have pretty good credit score, not carry too much debt level. They really do look at you personally, more so than your business plan in most cases. BDC might be an exception to that, but even there, your personal credit matters a lot. Venture capital, this is your money, people. So venture capital is probably, they're going to turn away probably, I'm going to guess 80, 90% of opportunities out there, because what they're looking for are very specific things. The great thing about using venture capital is that it really gives you good solid funding, and typically they're working with people who are looking for rapid growth. So by financing appropriately, you can grow quickly. The negative side is you have to give up control. So very often at the end of the day, you end up owning less than half of your business in the long run. But that's, if everything works out, it can be a really great thing for you if you're looking to grow quickly, and they're going to want an exit, so they will want you to sell the business eventually. Angel investors, this is more where people would actually contribute an influx of money. They may or may not be looking for a return. They often want to have some influence over how business is done, so they might look for you to create a board, and they would want a position on the board, or they might want a management role of some sort in your business. So that can be both good and bad. It can be good in that you're getting maybe some seasoned experience on the team. It can be not so great if you really want to be able to take business in a particular direction and they don't buy into that. Grants and subsidies, obviously these can be very good supports if you can access it. And the government currently has a lot of options available for you. I know the EDGE team are pretty up to speed on this. If you want to connect with anybody on the EDGE team, I'll show you later in the presentation how you can do that. But the great thing about grants and subsidies is that it's unfettered support. The not so great thing is that it's quite competitive. And of course, subject to change. There's time limits on it. The funding's only available for a certain amount or for a certain amount of time. And so that's a few options for you. So Lisa, you say, I heard business credits and building it is more important than personal and keeping personal separate. So whoever told you that, they are telling you the idealistic story. The reality is most of my clients are 15, 20 years in business. And to this day, if they go to get funding, they are asked for a personal guarantee. So it is really difficult to have the business operate entirely separate from you personally when it comes to bank and bank financing. We, I, myself, my partner, and the consultants in our business, we are regularly reminding our clients to go to the bank and request that they get their personal guarantees off. But the reality is you are asked continually to put a personal guarantee on if you are going for more money in your business. So just if that's the route you want to go, it can be a good route. And it is probably the majority of businesses that go that route. And, the banks are really great, meaning, if after a certain point, once you have the business built and you're producing revenue, they will provide financing on the basis of the business plan if it is a good plan and there is some asset backing. So very often why they ask for personal guarantees is because they're looking for the personal assets to be the backing of those loans. So I'll pause for a second. Any questions? There is two more. Actually, let me finish those two and then I'll pause. The last two are crowdfunding and sales. So crowdfunding, it's kind of a hot topic right now, and there's platforms that make it a little easier for you, and there's lots of people teaching how to do that well. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this, but I will tell you that crowdfunding has been done long before platforms ever existed. So for many, many years, crowdfunding existed. So I used to run well, I still own it, but we're holding properties, but I used to run a investment company, real estate investment company, and we would bring together multiple investors, each putting in a certain amount of money in order to support the growth of our business. And the whole goal was to have them get in, help us buy the properties, and then buy them out. So that was a form of crowdsourcing. I was leveraging them and their personal credit histories in order to buy properties and then buy them out as we built up the asset base. So crowdfunding's been done from ever. And then sales is the last piece. The thing to understand is that each source of funding, there are different things that those funders are looking for. So on the lenders, they're looking to minimize their level of risk and make sure that you have the capacity to repay, because it's generally loans. They don't like service firms too much. They might provide a line of credit, but they're not likely going to provide a whole lot of extra, because you don't like operating capital, because other than the line of credit, they're not going to invest in and provide loans per se. They would just do a line of credit, and they would need personal backing probably on a service business. Government grants, they're looking more if you can show how you impact the economy in some way, or how you solve a social problem, or how you will make the current party look good, then that's probably more in line with what they're looking for. Equity investors, they're looking for an exit strategy down the road. So they want rapid growth. They're typically looking for those hot sectors like tech, biotech, AI would be pretty hot right now. And they're looking to build and get out, build and get out. So, and angel investors, obviously want to help you quickly get to cash flow and make a profit. So I'll pause there for 1 sec. I'm not long. because I'm short on time. They will ask for personal backing means, Erin, means they just want to know, like they're not going to loan your business money without you signing for it personally. That's all. Okay. Are we, any other questions? You're good, Aditi? Hope I said that right. Okay. So how does this backing happen for a corporation? This backing meaning like for lenders? Is that what you mean, Aditi? Okay. It doesn't. No matter what the experts in the startup space tell you, in reality, over time, the business starts to develop a credit history of its own as you borrow money that is personally signed for under the name of the business. You start to develop a bit of a credit history for the business. But unless you have assets in that business that are 100% owned, assets meaning equipment, buildings, things that have value that they could sell if you default on your loan, they will not give you loans without you signing for them personally. Like, think about it. If you on the shady side of business, if you defaulted on that loan, if your business defaulted, you could just close that business down, go off, and they're left holding the bag. So they want something to back it because they're looking to minimize the level of risk they're taking on. Type of ownership matters, but for different reasons. And if you want to create a business credit history, then yes, the type of business matters. The type of ownership matters. Okay. So all of us are looking for money. We want to go to the banks, want to go get financing. But sometimes not getting that funding or financing is not really the problem. We think it's the problem, but it's just a symptom of the problem. And what I mean by that is, if you have a business that doesn't really need funding to get going, banks won't loan it to you, won't loan you money. And it's going to be harder to get funding. Do you understand the difference between funding and financing? Funding meaning money that's granted to you, sometimes in exchange for something, or sometimes not, just because the government's giving money if you meet certain criteria. And financing is debt. So sometimes if you're not getting funding or financing, it's because you have a business that has these issues. You don't need funding in order to get to sales, because you could just literally work the phones or send emails or something, right? You don't have a compelling business plan. So if you can't make a good case for what you need the money for, and you can't show them where your cash gaps will lie with an income and expense projection, then it's harder for them to invest in the business or make provide the money that you need to grow. They need to know that you've got a clear plan. Or maybe you're just not far enough into the process to prove that your business is viable. And then sometimes it's just, if you're going after venture capital money or even angel investment, if your business isn't scalable enough to be attractive to them, then they're just not going to invest. It's nothing against you. It's nothing against your business. It's just not the kind of business that they invest in. So, and then if you're going for financing from a bank, sometimes, if you're not in a position to be attractive to the bank for financing with a good credit history or whatever, then that can be a symptom for why it's difficult to raise the funding. Now, the great news is that a lot of funders and financiers are understanding the problem. So for once, in the 30 years I've been in business, this is the first I've seen so much money available, even though I know to you, it probably sometimes doesn't feel like it. But banks are making very attractive lending schemes, not maybe at the amounts you want, but start with what they offer. Sometimes I know my niece just registered a business through Owner, and RBC has a great uh, program where they provide $300 credit if you book through Owner and open a bank account with them. So like all these things kind of add up, small amounts, but not how much they need to grow, but it's a start. So it's just understanding the model that makes sense for the type of funding you're going after. Now, nobody likes this when I say it, and I've been working now with the RISE members at Edge for 3 years. They come in, they want to go and raise money, but the truth is, honestly, it would be 100 times easier to just go and have some sales conversation and drive revenue and self-fund growth. So if your business is something where revenue can be generated pretty quickly, then that your business might be that. So if you're in a service business, sometimes that's a good indicator. It's easy to just pick up the phone or talk to folks like me who have a good network and ask for introductions to people. Talk to your friends, your family, talk to everybody you meet about your business and ask for introductions to the people you need. If your startup costs are low, if your fixed or overhead costs are low, if you're operating from home, that can be an indicator that really just go after sales rather than funding. If growth can be steady and you can manage cash flow, because that's sometimes when you need cash, is when cash flow becomes a problem. Cash flow meaning money is like invoices are sent, people take too long to pay, and you have expenses. That's a cash flow problem. So if growth is steady enough and people pay their bills on time, you may not need funding. And then sometimes even tech companies can fall into this category where really after you've tried to go get funding and maybe you've talked to some VCs and they feel like you're not quite ready, maybe you just need to go sell the concept and have, a large corporation allow you to do a beta test. And we can talk more about that individually. If you ever want to reach out to me, we can chat about it if that's the position you're in, where you're building a technology platform. Very often there's ways to pre-sell it and still retain ownership. A lot of tech companies have been built that way. And then if you don't really need employees and you can hire people as needed on projects, sell the project and then hire the person you need to deliver that, then that can be a way as well. And then as you get sales in, it's easier and easier to get funding and financing. That's called bootstrapping. In the small business startup community, it seems like that gets a bad rap, and yet 85% of businesses are built this way. I've got clients that are running multi-million-dollar companies. Ask them their startup story. They started this way. They sold with a business card and a phone, and that's how they built. There's some really great advantages to it. You keep debt low. You don't want debt, guys. As much as possible, minimize debt. You want to keep your, you can use retained earnings to grow the business if you price properly. And so there's some really good reasons to do that. There's lots of great examples of people who bootstrapped the first few years and beyond. MailChimp's an example. Shopify started that way. Tough Mudder, Wayfair, GoFundMe, like lots of really big companies that have started this way. And then from that, once you get sales flowing, obviously growing sales is a way to get money into your business. And then in addition to that, you can use payment terms. If you could get people to pay their bill up front, then you get money in faster. So I tell all my clients in the service business, ask for 50% up front. There's your cash that you need. Or get people to pay sooner by offering discounts on payment. Okay, so the question in every business to me is this: what is the fastest path to cash? It's a question that we ask in every single conversation with Rise members when they first come and join us and they're working with us to scale. We sit with them and figure out what is the fastest way to start getting the money flow in the business. And when we do that, it gets easier and easier and easier to grow the business. And we're seeing people that come in and start at like almost no revenue. And within a very short time, they're making 200, 300, $1 million a year. And they started with nothing just by getting focused on sales. 9 times out of 10, you could get your business going this way and fund the first little bit that way. So let me go to example number 2 of how you could manage the money flow in your business. So we talked about income and expense projection. Now I want to talk about sales and how you manage sales and sales activity in order to get to whatever your sales target is, your revenue target is in the business. And by that, and to do that, I want to talk about your sales pipeline. So unless you're in a business where people are buying the product and paying for it instantly, which is not the majority of businesses, typically you've got to have some conversations and then they will choose to work with you. They will make a purchase, you will invoice them, and then you get the sales in. So the problem is that there's what's called the sales cycle, which is from the first conversation to when they purchase, how long is that? That's called the sales cycle. And if you are starting to talk to people, friends, family, connections, asking for introductions for what it is that you're selling, you will start to have sales conversations. And as you talk to people, you will get clearer and clearer on what you're selling, how best to sell it, and how to price it simply by having those conversations. That's some of what we teach in the Rise program at Edge. We are really laser focused on how to get money flow into the business as fast as possible. So if you look at this sales pipeline, and by the way, this is a simple spreadsheet, which Sanjana has provided in the chat window. If you're using a CRM, most CRMs have this same model. Usually it's called the deal pipeline or the sales pipeline or opportunity pipeline. But usually in your CRM, there's a way you can see your different opportunities. So this is a simple view just from a spreadsheet. Honestly, you don't need a CRM when you start, unless you're trying to build your list or nurture people, which is also wise to do. So perhaps you do fairly quickly, but maybe not immediately. You can literally get to sales without all that, just by having conversations. And as you have those conversations, they will say, well, what will that cost me? And you'll get the opportunity to provide a quote or a proposal, and you will have a deal, an opportunity, let's call it. So in this particular case, as a silly example, client 1 with the project name, the contact person, the deal's $20,000. Here's the thing. If you're just early in the process, you've done a quote or you've had a conversation and they say, we're going to be making that kind of purchase in June of this year. So you could say, okay, well, I think I could probably bill them $20,000, but it's not till June. So what's your probability of getting that? How many other conversations could they have between here and there? So in typical sales process, you create different sales stages. So, if you're just in early discussion versus if they've asked for a proposal or a quote, there's a different probability of getting that opportunity if it's just a conversation or if they've asked for a quote, right? So you assign a probability ratio. And so you take the deal which is potentially, in this case, 20,000. It's at stage 1, so early discussion. Probability is 10% because it's stage 1. This is, you can set that whatever you want. And that gives you a projected revenue of $2,000. Okay. Now, let me be clear. You're either getting the deal or you're not, okay? So at the end of the day, if it's $20,000, it's going to be $20,000 if you get it. But what we're doing here is trying to make sure that you have enough sales activity going to hit the target that you need to make. So where people often stop is they come to the deal value and they add up the deal value and they go, well, there's, I don't know how much that is, maybe 300 and I can't do that math in my head, but $360,000, let's say, in the deal value there, all the different conversations you've been having or quotes you've submitted. But you're not going to get 100% of that. So you put a probability to each one. That gives you a projected revenue or probable revenue. And this total, this green number, needs to add up to whatever your target is for the year. And if your probability ratios and your projected revenue as a result add up to, let's say you're going for $500,000 this year, then this green number needs to add up to $500,000. Are you with me, folks? Questions? Any questions? All right. So this is how sales teams manage themselves. And with sales, it's not about the total amount of the sale. It's about the amount of activity. And so over time, if you use this kind of model, you'll get to know how much activity you have to do in order to hit the number you want. And if this green number is running low, then you just need to do more activity. Because over time, you're going to land some of that and you'll get to know what your percentage close ratio is. Okay? So that's it. That's how you figure out revenue in. That I've shown you already how you're going to figure out income and expenses. If there's a cash gap and you're going to solve that with sales, you just need to increase the activity, the number of conversations you're having on the sales side in order to make sure you're hitting the numbers you need and closing that cash gap. Now, I hope this isn't like too complicated, but the truth is, in business, you kind of have to hold things lightly, meaning you never really know where the sales is going to come from or how the money will flow. So yes, go after funding and financing. I'm not saying don't, but I am saying that if you feel discouraged there, the fastest way to get over your discouragement, or if the fastest way to solve any money problem is to sell more stuff. And the fastest way to get sales is to just have a lot of conversations. Don't get too invested in a conversation. I had a RISE member message me there a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, well, I have this amazing sales opportunity. It's worth $100,000 in product sales. And I've got a 30% margin on it. So that means I could get $30,000 into my business. And that's awesome. So I celebrated with her. And then I said to her, well, okay, so what else have you got in your pipeline? Because you don't know if you're going to get that $100,000 sale, right? So you just need to get a few more $100,000 sales in there. And then if you get them all, great. But if you don't, and you only get one, then you still have $30,000 in your business. So hold everything a little lightly And if we place too much importance on one thing or one conversation or one loan application or grant application, if we hold too much importance on things, then we get frustrated and discouraged, and it makes entrepreneurship harder. So hold things lightly, not too tightly. And if you do that and just increase the activity level, the number of applications, the number of conversations, the number of sales proposals or meetings or whatever the right activity is for your business, the faster you'll get to the cash. Now, let's go back to our previous or our early conversation about holding the belief, choosing to believe that anything you want for your business is available. So the second thought to holding everything lightly is this: everything is a test in business. You could be 20 years into your business doing multiple $1 million a year, and it's still a test. Because there's no one right answer. There's 500 different paths to the same thing. I remember early on when I first had my son, I was an older mother when I had him, I was in my 40s, and he was born, and I remember my sister saying to me, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other thing. And I'm looking at her like, no, I don't. There's like, that's your opinion. I know 10 other people that would never do that. The same thing applies in business. There's no one right answer. Your way and your path to growth is going to be different than Joe Schmo's next to you. So hold your ideas lightly. Think of everything as a test. Even when you're hugely successful, it's still a test, because if you solve problems for people, people's problems can change. So you've got to always be having conversations, testing out ideas, testing out whether your current model still works. Think about it. Think of different things where problems have changed. It used to be that retail stores needed plastic bags, and they were always looking for the best plastic bag and the cheapest price on plastic bags. And so there were people that solved that problem for them. But now that's going away. It's either gone already or it's going. You know, I started a content development business about 15 years ago. So it's pretty early on in content development, and or at least I thought I was. So I had a team of content writers and producers who produced articles and videos and blogs for different industries. They were kind of standardized content that people could take and package. And, you know, we got partway into it, and then Google changed its algorithm. And all of a sudden, that standard content that people were reusing across different companies wasn't working for them. So that business, did it fail? No, just the problem changed, right? So I had to change. Think of piano tuning. Everybody's using digital pianos now. Piano tuning is gone. Video stores, everybody's on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. Even meeting rooms these days, since COVID, has kind of gone away in a way, right? Certain meetings, yes, but Zoom's created a solution to things like business travel, big meeting rooms, et cetera, et cetera. There's still a place for it, but it's just different. It's less, or it's changed. So everything you do in business is still a test, even 20 years down the road. Now, there is a book. Several years ago, I took this program with Clemmer Institute, and it's a personal development program. The guy that started the business wrote this book. It's called If How-Tos Were Enough, We'd All Be Skinny, Rich, and Happy. Because he's basically saying, if we are all looking for the Holy Grail, whatever that Holy Grail is, so in this case, the result, if we're all looking for that, that is our intent. We're moving toward our goal, our end result that we're seeking, right? Whatever that is, it's unique to each of us. We have an intention, we set a goal, we move toward that goal. We're all looking for the right next step, the perfect steps. But the truth is that there is no one right step. So his whole book is about how if you set the intention clearly and it's deep in your soul, you will get the result without knowing the steps. Intention equals results. I know that's a bit airy-fairy, but that's the truth. Intention equals results. If you're clear on your intent, your goal, if you stay focused on that, you will skirt around whatever gets in your way in order to get to the end game. Last thing is this. My son is 10 now. He's learning Muay Thai. He decided in January he wanted to do that because his cousin, who's 22, is doing it. So 4 weeks ago he started, and he came home from class the first day, and he's like, I have a treadmill in my house and a little gym at home with a few weights and a Bosu ball and things like that. And so I work out at home, and he tells me he wants to get in shape for class. So he starts using my treadmill, and he's like, wow, this is really hard, because he put it, of course, on the highest incline. And then he started using my weights. I said, no, you just can only use the 5-pound weights, okay? But he's learning resistance training. Resistance training can take someone from kind of chunky to kind of buff in a very short period of time, right? But when you're doing it, you don't feel so good about it, you know? You're kind of achy because you overdid the workout. And that's very much like your business. Sometimes it's painful trying to grow. But you're in the resistance right now. You're building strength. You're gathering forces. And all of a sudden, it's going to feel like, all of a sudden, even though it's not, things are just going to work for you. Now, have you ever been on an airplane where you're partway down the runway and you start thinking, boy, is this thing ever going to get off the ground? In order for an aircraft to rise into the air, the resistance of the wind has to create the opportunity for lift simply by, it has to get past the force of gravity. So that means so much resistance against it that it can lift off. That is the same kind of situation for you in your business. And that means the faster you can have conversations, the faster you can talk to more and more funders, financiers, or customers, the faster you'll get to that liftoff in your business. So resistance is a good thing. When people tell you no, that means you're that much closer to making things happen. So coming back to our current topic, money is not held back from anybody. It feels sometimes like people or processes or systems or just jerks are getting in your way and causing a problem for you, and they're stopping you from being successful. They're not. Just skirt around them to the next thing. People say cruel and thoughtless things to you sometimes, and sometimes we let that get in our brain, right? You know, about a decade ago, I almost went bankrupt with a business that went bad, and or a test that didn't work out so well. And right after that, I went through a bit of a traumatic experience in my life involving family, and I was left kind of alone with a little baby. And I can't even tell you how much that played in my head. I was just a mess. But, you know, at my soul, I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't even think about getting a job. I don't know how to explain it. I'm just cuckoo. But so I'm trying to build this business that I'm in now. And I just, like, the self-talk in my head was just crappy. And I was choosing to believe that I wasn't worthy, or that I didn't know enough to help people, or that I just felt low, right? But honestly, that's all just stuff going on in my head. So as soon as I was able to shift the thinking, then the results changed. So how did I shift the thinking? And this is the last thing. I used a daily mantra. This happens to be a version of what I've used, where I literally would look in the mirror every day And I would say this to myself. I had it hung on my mirror in my bathroom. A little embarrassed by that. But every day I would say this to myself. And that's how I started to believe again, because I'd been through kind of a journey. And I let that kind of get in my head. I needed to shift the way I think. I needed to choose different beliefs. And that's how business gets built. So I'm going to end there. I hope this was valuable to you. If you need more, we have a number of programs at Edge at Sheridan College. I'm a mentor and a coach in the program. So, you know, if there's a need you have, we'd love to talk to you about how one of our programs could help you. And then if you just want to reach out, if you have a question or if you want to get connected in some way, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn or send me an email. Or I know the whole team at Edge are very willing to talk to you about what options are available for you in terms of working with Edge or looking for money and looking for funding or financing in your business. So I would encourage you to reach out to one of us. And Sanjana, I'll put it back to you. If you can get your unmute going.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was really insightful. And I think I speak on behalf of everybody when I say how helpful it was, especially the mindset that you spoke about. So I'd just like to request the SIC participants to stay back for a while. And for all the participants, we do have a feedback form that we would love if you could fill it so that we get some valuable feedback from your end. Good, whether it's good or bad, we are open and we want to listen to what you have to say. I am sharing the link to the feedback form in the chat. Yes, with that, I thank you all for joining us today, and I just request the SIC folks to stay back.